I have the Codex and data cards. It's time for a Necron Codex review.
Necrons!
I'll be back. Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, at long last, I have the Necron Codex, and today we're going to review it. Before that though, if you would like to keep up to date with the wonders of Warhammer 40k, not miss a Necron upload, then please give me a sub and hit the bell button so you don't miss a video. Okay, so I am very excited to bring this video to you. I am a massive Necron fan. I've been playing Necrons for around 18 years, and today we're going to have a look at their brand new Codex. You should have seen me yesterday when I picked it up. I was literally hugging it. I was so excited about this book. Okay, so first of all, I just want to have a quick chat about the actual book itself. Now, I have to say, I'm very, very happy how it looks. The front cover is awesome. I like the new design of 8th edition with the border. I think it finishes the book off quite nicely, and it's a great Necron picture. The actual artwork itself is also amazing. I have to say, I think it's a massive step up to what we had in the previous Codex. I wasn't a fan of the style of artwork in that previous Codex, but in this one, I have to say, the artwork is absolutely awesome. I'm really, really loving it. I'm loving the layout. I love the black and green colours they've got, and it even has my most favourite ever Necron picture. That one there, that is the picture that got me into Necrons. That's why I chose Necrons in the first place. Necrons! So, the Codex itself does look really, really awesome. I'm very happy with it as a book. How about the changes though? Okay, so before we look at the changes in the Codex, just want to mention that I have noticed that this is definitely not a copy and paste. Even units which haven't had a change to any of their rules have been rewritten slightly. The rules themselves have been made clearer or easier to understand, which is a good thing. However, there is a big mistake in the Codex, and that's right at the back. It lists the troop section to include Death Marks and Lich Guard, but in actual fact on the data cards they're elites. That's obviously just a mistake. They of course are supposed to be elites. These things happen, I've seen it in the past, and I'm sure it would happen again in the future. However, the Codex itself seems to be well written and quite well laid out. Okay, so let's get straight onto the changes then. First of all, we're going to look at the point changes. This is something that all Necron players had their fingers crossed that we would get a points reduction across the board of the Codex. So has that happened? Okay, so I've made a list of all of the points reductions. So let's have a look at them, and then we'll have a chat about the reductions themselves. So we've got the Nightbringer that's come down 20 points. Imatech and Orokin have come down 28 points, Trazyn has come down 49 points, and Vargard has come down 11 points. We've then got the Cryptic that's come down 14 points. However, they've had a change in their war gear. Now you have to pay for Chronometron, which is 15 points, and then we have the new cloak option, which is 5 points. You can only take one of them, not both of them. The Staff of Light has come down 8 points. The Destroyer Lord's come down 14 points, and the Overlord has come down 17 points. That's in the HQ slots. Elite's Death Marks have come down 1 point. Flayed Ones have come down 4 points, and Praetorians 3 points less than they were. Dispersion Shields have come down 3 points also on your Lich Guard. Wraiths have gone up 17 points, we'll talk more about them later. Destroyers have come down 13 points, and Tomb Blades have come down 10 points. Also on Tomb Blades, the Scopes have come down 1 point, and the Shield Vanes have come down 3 points. The Spider has had an 11 points drop, Doomsday Ark 10 points drop. Heavy Destroyers have come down 13 points, and their Heavy Gauze Cannon has come down 5 points, so an 18 points drop on Heavy Destroyers. The Transcendence Catan has come down 7 points. Incidentally, the twin Heavy Gauze Cannon has come down 10 points. The Ghost Ark down 10 points, Doom Scythe down 15 points, and the Night Scythe down 14 points. There's a new piece of war gear which is the Void Scythe, which comes in at 20 points. Now I had a look, base wise, without any of the war gear options, that's a total reduction over the Codex of 275 points, which comes in at just under 6%. So you're looking around a 6% points reduction overall, but has the point reductions been in the right places? Now of course there are always winners and losers with any Codex release. Not every single unit is going to get better. It's usually determined by which models GW want to sell. Those are the models that generally get better. It's quite interesting to see that the Monolith has stayed exactly the same in points wise, and also, as we'll find out later, in stat wise. However, it's not just about points reductions, it's about obviously stat changes and the introduction of things like Warlord Traits, Stratagems, artifacts, and of course Dynasty Codes can really change things up with the actual units themselves. So I think it's now time to have a look at the changes to the actual stats and rules for the individual units. Okay, so let's have a look at the changes to the units. Not points changes, but stat or rule changes. So first of all, I'm going to look at the units that have had no change at all. Just going to run through my list. So we've got Warriors, Immortals, Death Marks, Ghost Arks, Praetorians, Night Scythe, Doom Scythe, Monolith, Heavy Destroyers, Obelisk, Nemesaur, Illuminor, Orokin, Anrak, Trazyn, Overlord and Destroyer Lord. However, there's quite a few units that have had some major changes, so let's have a look at those. Okay, so now I'm going to have a look at the changes for the units on the data cards. This is not going to include any stratagem buffs, just the actual data cards themselves. Okay, so first of all we're going to have a look at the Lich Guard, who haven't changed base in points. However, their dispersion shield has come down 3 points, and their hyperphase sword is now better. It's strength 6 rather than strength 5, so a little bit of a buff there for the Lich Guard. Okay, so flayed ones, which have come down 4 points a model, that is quite a big drop. However, the stats have reflected that drop. So now we get 3 attacks as opposed to 4, and their Flesh Hunter rule is worse. It used to be +1 to morale rolls for any unit within 3 inches. Now you have to kill a model from a unit for them to be -1 leadership. So a little bit worse, but a lot cheaper, which I think is quite welcome. 3 attacks is still pretty good, bearing in mind that they have Shred still, so they can re-roll their wounds, and in the Novok Dynasty they can re-roll their hits, so they're still pretty good, and a points reduction is definitely welcome. Okay, so next is the Ox Stalker that didn't take a points drop itself. However, its heavy gauze cannon did take a 10 points drop, but more importantly the heat ray has got a bit of a buff. The heat ray was a heavy D6 shots, and now it's a heavy 2 D6 shots. Not only that, the Ox Stalker no longer explodes. That is a great bonus. Okay, so Wraiths are next. This is the interesting one. So Wraiths have gone up 17 points a model. They have, however, got better. So the claws are now AP2 and they were AP1, and they do 2 damage, whereas previously it was 1 damage. Whip coils themselves have also been improved. They're also -2 AP and 2 damage, where they had no AP before, and 1 damage. And you still have the special rule of being able to strike even if you're killed that turn. On top of that, Wraiths can now shoot and assault after they fall back. That makes them very powerful. So overall, Wraiths have gone up in price, but they've also got a lot better. So this is quite interesting. Wraiths have gone up dramatically in points. However, so has their stat line. I think it would have been nice to have a choice to take more basic Wraiths. Maybe we could have had some different war gear options where we could make our Wraiths either cheap and cheerful or more expensive and good. However, there are no options, and that makes the Wraiths quite an expensive unit, especially if you want to take the particle beamers on there or the whip coils, which to be fair you probably aren't going to take. At 55 points a model base, you're probably not going to put too much war gear on them. Okay, so next is Scarab Swarms, which haven't had a points change, but they have had a debuff. So they've gone down to weapon skill 4 rather than weapon skill 3. Now to be honest, I think that's a fair reduction, because Scarab Swarms hitting on 3s, that was very powerful, especially with the amount of attacks that they have. So hitting on 4s seems about right, and if you take them again in the Novok Dynasty, you're going to be able to re-roll those 4s. So on the whole, I think that's a fair change for Scarab Swarms. Okay, so next is Tomb Blaze. Now Tomb Blaze came down 10 points, but not only that, they've got Invasion Engrams now, so the enemy is at -1 to hit rolls. Very nice indeed. Scopes have come down 1 point, that's where you can take away your enemy's cover save, and Veins have come down 3 points, which is where you can have a 3+ save on your Tomb Blades. It's fair to say that Tomb Blades, with their points reduction, is probably one of the standout units in terms of changes in the Codex. However, they're not the only ones. Seems like Destroyers have also done very well in this Codex. They've come down 13 points and had a buff to their gun. Their gun is now 3 shots as opposed to 2, and strength 6 as opposed to strength 5. So that's a nice little buff there and a reduction in points. Great to see, because Destroyers really were pretty overpriced, to be fair, but now they're pretty good for their points. Okay, so the Tomb Spider, or Canoptic Spider, that's come down 11 points now. It's had a bit of a change to its Scarab Hive rule. If you rolled a 1 when generating a Scarab, it used to be D3 mortal wounds. Bearing in mind he has 4 wounds, so that roll could be quite disastrous. However, now it's only 1 mortal wound if you rolled a 1. That is a lot better. However, you still have the same problems that Tomb Spiders used to have in terms of generating more Scarabs. The Scarab Swarm has to be depleted before you can do it. You can't go over the starting number. So slightly better. The points reduction is very useful if you want to take a Gloom Prism or Fabricator Claw Ray, but in terms of doing the Scarab Swarm type list, it's not that much better. Okay, so next is the Annihilation Barge, which hasn't really had a change except for the weapon. The Gauze Cannon is now heavy 3 and strength 6. The Doomsday Ark, which came down 10 points, has had big changes to its gun. We have covered this in a previous video, but the small gun now shoots 36 inches as opposed to 24, and has a heavy D6 as opposed to a heavy D3. The 72-inch gun, the big gun which you have to stand stationary to shoot, has changed from a heavy D3 to a heavy D6. So a nice change to the Doomsday Arks. Okay, so the Tesseract Vault, which hasn't changed in points, is still around 500 points, which is a bit of a shame. However, it has got better. It now has a 4+ invulnerable save, which is really nice to see. Regarding the powers of the Catan on the Vault, there are now 6 powers of the Catan, and the Vault knows 4 of them, where there used to be 3 powers and the Vault knew all 3 of them. However, you can still only use the amount of powers equivalent to the chart in the box, so at full strength it's 3 powers of the Catan. Okay, continuing on with Catans, the Nightbringer and Deceiver. The Deceiver is interestingly more expensive now than the Nightbringer, with the Nightbringer coming down 20 points. They both can't use a Warlord trait. They have, of course, the new powers of the Catan. There's 6 of them, and they know 2 of the powers where they used to only know 1 power. The powers are now done at the end of the movement phase, where previously it was done in the shooting phase. I suppose indicating once again that these powers are not shooting attacks. The Transcendent Catan, which has come down 7 points, has all of the rules that the other 2 Catans have, plus it has a personality chart. I got slightly confused with this in my preview video. I don't think Games Workshop made it particularly clear in that preview. However, the way it works is the Transcendent Catan has a personality chart, and you roll on that chart, or you can pick one. So you can pick one of those traits, or you can roll randomly for 2. Duplicates have no effect. So in other words, if you roll a double, I'm assuming you can only take 1 power. You can't re-roll the dice because it says duplicates have no effect. Now on the personality trait, if you rolled a 1, it means that you can use 2 powers of the Catan, not 2 powers of the personality trait. That's where I got a bit confused on that previous video. But overall, I think the Catans have got a very nice buff. In particular, the Deceiver and the Transcendent Catan. I think those are my go-to ones. The Nightbringer with a points reduction is still quite nice. I think the other 2 are probably better. Okay, so next is the HQs. So Imatech, which has come down 28 points, has had its stat line corrected to say that it's leadership 10. In actual fact, all of the FAQ changes are now in the Codex, which is great to see. So his staff has got better, it's strength 6 where it was strength 5. You get an extra command point if you take Imitech as your Warlord, and you can use My Will Be Done twice if you target 2 Soot-Tech infantry units. Vargard, which came down 11 points, can only use his Lord's Will now on Soot-Tech infantry, where it used to be all Soot-Tech units. Now the command barge has had no points change, however of course the Gauze cannon has got better. It's interesting to see that the war gear options are a lot easier to see now. They're actually listed on the data cards rather than having to go to the back of the codex to see what the war gear options do. I think that's a nice addition to the data cards. The Necron Lord, although it had no points change, the Staff of Light has come down. The Lord's Will has also been changed to infantry units rather than any dynasty unit. Okay, so lastly is the Cryptic, which came down 14 points. However, you've got to choose your war gear now separately, and you can only choose one of them. So you can either take the Cloak for 5 points, which lets you move 10 inches, and then you've got the Living Metal buff for units around you, and then you've got 15 points for the Chronometron, which gives you your 5+ save, taking it back up to almost how many points it was in the index. Okay, so that's all the points changes and rule changes. As you can see, some units have got better, some units have got worse, some units have stayed the same. However, that isn't the end of it. We still have the artifacts, the stratagems, the warlord traits and dynasty codes, which is really going to change the codex up. Okay, so things to note, the special rules haven't changed. Living Metal is the same and Reanimation Protocol is the same. It's also noted that just like in Chapter Approved, if your army is battle forged, you gain objectives secured on your troops. Okay, so regarding the Dynasty Codes, I'm not going to cover them too much in this video. There are 5 new codes and they have their own set of special rules. I have covered these codes in previous videos, so I'll link you up to a playlist there where you can check them out if you're interested. Now it's worth noting there's a new Dynasty Agent rule. These are for units like the Catan, the Ox Stalker and the Luminor. The idea is that you can take these in your Dynasty army without affecting the Dynasty unit's abilities to work. Okay, so now I'm going to have a quick chat about the Warlord Traits, the Stratagems and the Artifacts. I'm not going to cover these in depth here in this video. I will make dedicated separate videos for all of these, because I think they are very important, and ultimately it's these things here which really change the codex and what we have in the codex rules. Okay, so the artifacts. We've got 13 artifacts now. The Veil of Darkness for me does stand out as one of the better ones still. I like to be able to teleport a unit across the board, and now with the Dynasty Code rules like the Mefret Dynasty, that could be very powerful indeed. However, there are quite a few new artifacts like the Nano Scarab, letting our HQ stand up again on a 4+ after he's slain, and also the Weave, allowing us to beef up our HQ by toughness and wounds. +1 toughness, +1 wounds, maybe on a Cryptic, that could be very useful. As I said, we're going to cover those in more depth in another video. But now on to the Warlord Traits. Okay, so we have 6 standard Warlord Traits. The one that stood out to me was Thralls of the Silent King, extending our character's ability by 3 inches. Very useful on a Cryptic with Chronometron. We have a Warlord trait that lets us deny the Witch with our character. Again, quite useful. And we've got our dedicated Dynasty Warlord traits as well. 1 for each trait. Again, we're going to cover Warlord traits in a separate video, but I am liking what we have. Okay, so the big one, the Stratagems. We have 27 Stratagems. In this box you get 30 Stratagem cards. That's 3 cards from the main rulebook and 27 Necron ones. Okay, so I'm not going to go over all of the stratagems in this video, but I am going to cover a few of them. It's pretty clear that the stratagems is where the power of the codex is. Even those units that haven't had much change can benefit in the codex from the stratagems, in particular the Monolith. Now it's fair to say that the Monolith was a huge disappointment not getting any points reduction. However, some of these stratagems can make the Monolith a bit more usable. Okay, so first of all we've got emergency evasion beams for 1 command point. Now when you deploy a Monolith or a Night Scythe, you can hold units in reserve on the Tomb World for those units that teleport either through the Night Scythe or the Monolith. Now if all of your units that has that teleport ability on the table is destroyed, the units that are in reserve are also destroyed. Well, now for 1 command point, when your last unit that has the teleport ability is destroyed, you can play the stratagem and bring that unit straight onto the table without it being destroyed. That's very useful. Not only that, we have another stratagem called Enhanced Invasion Beams. This is 1 command point and lets us bring 2 units through the monolith or the Night Scythe in one go, in one turn. That is also really useful. And on top of that, we've got Dimensional Corridor. Again, 1 command point lets us teleport an infantry unit on the table through the monolith. So now the monolith portal is a lot more useful than it used to be. However, you've still got to pay the points for the monolith, and of course use your command points up to help the monolith along the way, but it is at least a bit more useful. Other useful stratagems: 1 command point, Solar Pulse, take away our enemy's cover save on a unit. Resurrection for 1 command point, our HQ has a chance of coming back on a 4+ if he dies. Extermination Protocols, 1 command point, lets our destroyers re-roll the hits and wounds. Adaptive subroutines means we can shoot and assault after we advance for 1 command point. There's lots of really great stratagems in the Codex. But overall, with the Dynasty Codes, the Warlord Traits, the artifacts, the stratagems, the points reduction and better stats on some of the weapons, I think this Codex is really good. Now of course it's very early days for the Codex, and in my opinion too early for people to be judging it. There's a lot of synergy in this Codex, there's a lot of things to unlock, and there's a lot of different types of army lists that are available to us now with all the different Dynasty Codes. Personally, I am very excited by this Codex, and I'm really looking forward to trying all different types of army lists on the table. However, I have one army list which is ready for 8th edition, which I made a video about previously, so let's have a look at that list. Okay, so my 8th edition ready list was 2,000 points. I basically had a battalion detachment with 2 lords and 3 troops, and then I had an outrighted detachment with a cryptic, 2 squads of flayed ones, 3 squads of wraiths and 3 squads of scarabs. Now I've put the points for the new Codex into this list and it's gone up 225 points. I was expecting the points to come down on the list, however of course it's the wraiths which have made this list quite expensive. I wasn't expecting those wraiths to go up so dramatically. However, they've also gone up in their abilities, so I'm sure that I can adjust my list and still make it work very well, especially with the Novok Dynasty special rules. So I'm really looking forward to adapting my list and getting some battle reports up on the channel. I'm looking forward to making a load more Necron tactical videos, so stay tuned for those. Beam me up!